Crude oil is in the mid-80s. If that's the number you're watching, you'd think the energy story is contained. It isn't. The number that actually matters just hit an all-time record, and it isn't crude. If you're trading crude futures right now and you don't know what the crack spread is telling you, you're going to misread this entire market. You're going to miss the real signal, position for the wrong outcome, and get caught in the biggest energy shift in a generation on the wrong side of the trade. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what the crack spread is and why 102 is an all-time record, how a diesel shortage becomes a food crisis before the mainstream news connects the dots, and two binary outcomes every trader needs to be aware of right now. Look at what the mainstream media headlines are showing you. Brent in the mid-90s, WTI in the mid-80s, neither one screaming crisis. Energy is contained. That's the narrative. That narrative is built on the wrong number. The front-month diesel crack spread, heating oil against WTI, just hit 102 a barrel. That's an all-time record on the futures contract. If you don't know what the crack spread is, it's the margin between what a refinery pays for crude oil and what it sells the refined product for. In this case, diesel. Crude is the input, diesel is the output. And right now, the gap between them has never been wider in recorded history. So why does that matter to you? When crude prices drop, you might assume fuel is getting cheaper. But diesel comes out of a refinery, and refining capacity is the bottleneck. Bank of America counts 3 of the world's 4 major refining regions disrupted right now. Between the Hormuz closure, Ukrainian strikes on Russian refineries, and China holding back exports, diesel reserves are drained. And fair warning, spreads this wide don't usually last. They collapse, and they collapse fast. What's holding this one open is that every valve that normally relieves it is jammed at once. Every business that runs on diesel, from trucking to agriculture to manufacturing, is buying fuel at more than $100 a barrel above crude. Normal is 15 to 25. Jeffries has a phrase for this: cracks, not crude. So the first thing you now know, this crisis isn't what goes into the refinery. It's what comes out. The crack spread at 102 is the real early warning signal, not crude. You've been watching the wrong number. And what that record crack spread is about to collide with? Timing. Gasoline moves people. Diesel moves everything else. Every long-haul truck, every piece of farm equipment, every grain dryer, every freight train, every construction machine on a job site. And right now, U.S. diesel reserves are sitting near 23-year lows. They bottomed in May at the lowest levels since 2003. And at this point in the calendar, heading into harvest, they're the thinnest since 1996. Now the timing problem. Most are looking at the crude chart. Harvest season doesn't care about the crude chart. Farmers fire up their combines, tractors, grain dryers, all run diesel. And this year, they're firing them up into the tightest diesel market in more than 2 decades. When farm operating costs spike like this, that cost doesn't disappear. It passes through. JP Morgan is warning that a global food crisis could hit as early as next year, driven by Hormuz disruption to fertilizer supply, with fuel costs stacked on top. And it's not just the US. European diesel stockpiles are near 2022 energy crisis levels. Ukrainian drone strikes have gutted Russian refining capacity, and Russia answered by banning diesel exports. A ban analysts don't expect to lift before 2027. This shortage is global. The second thing you now know: harvest season peaks demand exactly when reserves are near 23-year lows. That collision drives up farm operating costs. Those costs pass into commodity prices, and commodity prices pass into the food prices every consumer pays. The collision isn't coming. It's already here. And the tool the government is using to fight this? It's making the problem worse. The administration has been draining the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. When Hormuz shut, Trump ordered an emergency release. The reserve held about 415 million barrels before the war. It's now below 300 million, the lowest level since 1983. And it isn't finished. When that release completes, the reserve runs down towards 243 million. The strategy was to flood crude supply, push crude prices down, and ease the energy burden on the economy. The problem is that strategy does not touch diesel. So what do SPR releases actually do? Crude is the input, so crude prices get capped. And they have been. That's a big part of why WTI is still in the mid-80s instead of triple digits. But diesel is a refined product. Releasing crude doesn't add diesel to the market. It doesn't build refinery capacity. It doesn't replenish diesel reserves. So crude stays capped while diesel stays elevated. That widens the crack spread. The government's own intervention is making the signal worse. And here's what they didn't plan for. The US-Iran ceasefire expired. Trump refused to extend it. Iran's foreign ministry announced a shift to a fully offensive posture. And the agreement that died was the one that was supposed to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a strait that normally carries about a fifth of the world's oil consumption and a quarter of all seaborne crude. And that has effectively been closed since the spring. Transits are running in the low teens a day against a normal count of nearly 90. That closure is why the supply is constrained right now. And it's happening while you have zero safety valve left in refined product reserves. The SPR was built for crude shortages. This is a refined product shortage. And now the geopolitical backstop that was holding this together is gone. The safety valve is broken. And right now, 5 of the biggest desks on Wall Street are saying the same thing. Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, Bank of America, Jefferies, JP Morgan. 5 institutions, all issuing diesel shortage warnings or downstream food crisis warnings inside the same few weeks. That kind of institutional convergence doesn't happen by accident. The smart trade is to take it seriously and to know exactly what they're warning about. Here's what makes this a binary outcome. And this is the part that determines how you trade the next 90 days. The first outcome is industrial demand destruction. Diesel costs get so high that businesses stop absorbing them. Trucking contracts, agricultural operations scale back. That's also how every previous crack spike ended. Demand destruction is what breaks the spread. The second outcome is the largest energy cost pass-through in modern history. If the physical economy does keep moving, because farms have to plant, trucks have to run, and factories have to produce, every diesel cost gets passed downstream. Farm to commodity, commodity to warehouse, warehouse to grocery store to your cart. That's the inflationary path. There's no middle path here. Not at $102 crack spreads with a 23-year reserve low and harvest season running. So here's the full picture. This is the answer to the question we opened with. Crude is in the mid-80s, but the real economy is already breaking because diesel, the fuel that actually runs farms and trucks and factories, is in historic shortage. The crack spread at 102 is the signal mainstream news isn't reading. The SPR can't fix it because it's the wrong tool. Harvest season is amplifying the collision, and 5 Wall Street desks called it within weeks of each other. You now understand that crude oil futures are the wrong instrument to watch. The diesel crack spread at 102 is the real early warning signal, and it's already pricing in a cascade that mainstream markets haven't caught yet. But understanding what the crack spread is telling you isn't the same as knowing what price is actually doing right now, or when this story becomes a tradable event. Here's what understanding this information also doesn't give you: the truth about the direction of price. Right now, it gives you a narrative, and narratives matter, but price is what tells you whether the narrative is true or not. The measured move is a framework for understanding the direction of price. It tells you whether this story is being confirmed by price or not. If you trade on a narrative without that framework, you could be on the wrong side of a trade for days, weeks, or even months, waiting for price to catch up to that story. That framework is what I teach. The traders in my community know when a narrative becomes true in price. Before that moment, they may be trading in the opposite direction of consensus because price hasn't confirmed the story yet. They wait for the setup. They have a process for knowing when it's valid. That process is what I teach every day at eminiaddict.com.